Good morning. As we begin, we would like to acknowledge that this service is being held by a community that gathers on the stolen traditional lands of the Massachusetts, Nipmuc, Pawtucket, and Wampanoag people. We pay respect to these Indigenous peoples who lost their lives in the colonization of this land and recognize that these Indigenous tribes are still today facing violations of sovereignty, territory, and water. We also give thanks for the earth we walk upon, the waters, the life-giving plants, and all the earth's creatures, as well as the winds, the sun, the moon, and the stars. We recognize this is just a first step in moving toward right relationship with Native peoples and healing of the earth. Good morning, and welcome to the First Parish Church of Stowe and Acton, FPC, to our members and friends, a welcoming and spiritual community. My name is Kirsten Chetwynd, and I serve as a facilitator for small group, one of the groups in small group ministry. Small group ministry offers an opportunity to get know yourself and a small group of 8 to 10 other people, better through a monthly 2-hour facilitated discussion that requires no preparation. I've been part of small group ministry for, I think, 10 years, and I'm not a person to keep going if it's not working for me. So it's been a good community, good experience to get to know people and hear some different opinions. Want you to know that small group ministry registration has been extended to today at 1 p.m. You can do it online, or there'll be somebody downstairs taking paper registrations. If this is your first time with us, we welcome you. Please let us know you are here by filling out one of our visitor information cards in the pews and hand it to an usher, drop it in a plate, or hand it to Meg, our welcoming staff member. We won't add you to any of our email lists unless you check that box to do so. Our minister and staff are listed in the front of the order of service. Please feel free to ask me or any of these people for more information about the church and its programs after the service, or by email or through chat if you're online. We also invite you to check out our webpage for news and information, and you can also sign up for our newsletter and email alerts. We ask that people remain masked in our sanctuary except at the balcony and in the church offices and RE spaces, but the rest of our building is mask optional. Please check with the people you're talking to about their comfort levels, and please make sure the air filters are on when you congregate in any room. If you would like a large print order of service or hymnal or an assisted listening device, please ask our ushers. Our assisted listening devices are actually small radios that work throughout the building if you would like to listen to the service from another space for any reason. After the service, please join us for coffee and conversation in our fellowship hall, which is one level down at the other end of our building. Over there, there's an elevator. Or in the breakout room if you're enjoying joining us online. I'd like you to draw your attention to the announcements in our order of service, particularly the RE cottage sessions, to help envision what our religious education will look like. Those meetings are being set up. and other things in our order of service, as well as information about how to sign up for our email lists and newsletter. And now let us come together for a time of community, singing, and worship.
Today, backed by popular demand, let's take a few minutes and greet your neighbor.
Our Introit this morning is in need of your participation. So we're going to invite you to stand with us. The words this morning are, it doesn't have to be like this. Say it once. It doesn't have to be like this. Say it again. It doesn't have to be like this. So I'm going to sing it once, and then the choir is going to join me, and you're just going to keep echoing this over and over again. The choir is going to sing some other material on top of it, but you're just going to keep going with, it doesn't have to be like this. 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 Stand as you wish. It doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't have to be like this. With strength. It doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't have to be like this. Today, another doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't have to be like this. Another doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't have to be like this. Another it doesn't have to be like this. Today, another world is possible. Today, another world is possible. It doesn't have to be like this. 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 It doesn't have to be like this.
Our opening words are responsive today. If you would please turn to the insert in your order of service. And if you would read the italics, which actually means you have the first line. This is "You Are Welcome Here" by the Reverend Dr. Debra W. Haffner. You are welcome here. If you are straight, gay, lesbian, bisexual, intersexual, demisexual, pansexual, or asexual, or resist labels completely.
You are whole and welcome here.
If you are transgender, non-binary, genderqueer, or cisgender.
You are whole and welcome here.
If you are confused about your sexuality, have questions, struggle in an intimate relationship, or struggle because you aren't in one.
You are whole and welcome here.
If you have had an abortion or an unintended pregnancy, given up a child, had a miscarriage, have AIDS or HIV, struggle with infertility or sexual dysfunction.
You are whole and welcome here.
If you have been the victim of sexual abuse, sexual harassment, or sexual assault. If you have made sexual decisions or had behaviors that you regret. Your sexuality is holy and sacred and an integral part of who you are. As Unitarian Universalists, we will side with you, love you, and fight for your rights. We seek to create a world where sexuality and sexual diversity is celebrated with wholeness and integrity. Our chalice lighting words are by Maureen Killoran, and I forgot to ask if someone would light the chalice. Marissa, would you do that for me? Thank you. In these hard times, let us look first to the response of love. In the midst of challenge, may our chalice flame bear witness to the inherent worth and dignity of every human being. In the midst of uncertainty, may our chalice be a beacon of encouragement that our values may guide our choices. Let us look first to the response of love. Our opening hymn is a winter hymn, number 55, Dark of Winter. Please stand in body or in spirit. This is one of those wonderful UU hymns that lifts up a positive and an affirming image of darkness. And that's one of the reasons it's valued so much. And please join in our covenant and affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. For all those joys and sorrows that are held within our hearts and left unspoken, let it be true that they too are shared in loving community as we join together in this one church body. Our words for prayer or meditation today come from Greta Jo Sedahl, titled, "You Are Loved." Quote, everybody loves someone who had an abortion. And let's talk about the flip side. If you had an abortion, you are loved. If you've never told a soul, or if you share your story regularly, you are loved. If you are confident in your decision, or wonder if it was the right choice, you are loved. If you are a queer, non-binary, trans, two-spirit, or cis woman, you are loved. If you are child-free by choice or want to have kids eventually, you are loved. If your choice was driven by medical viability or your own emotional health, you are loved. If you found a provider to care for you or had to rely on yourself, you are loved. If you were always pro-choice, or if your choice conflicts with your beliefs, you are loved. If you love your body or are still angry with your body, you are loved. If you believe God loves you, or you believe in nothing divine at all, you are loved. If you find yourself reflected here, or your truth is more than words in ink post can, you are loved. Please rise in body or in spirit and join in our next hymn, number 1053, How Could Anyone?
How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul.
Instead of a reading today, we have a video titled Universe in My Uterus by Reverend Karen G. Johnston. It's provided by the UUA's Side with Love organization, as are many of the readings and words in today's services.
All right.
Universe
Are you getting
in my
this?
uterus.
No.
A famous poet once conjured the world in a grain of sand. My doctor has conjured the universe in my uterus. No worn cliche, seed, menses, life, fetus, but a fibroidal white dwarf, an echo of what was once a star, a cystic degenerating black hole collapsing in upon itself as any self-respecting dying growth should. On my bad days, when my mind unhinges benign from growth, I taste the dark thickness. I see the thick darkness. I feel the cobwebs covering the crevices where this complicated tissue has insinuated itself. On my good days, when the hypochondriacal whispers of are muted, I sense wonder, even order on the grandest scale. Having outgrown its blood supply, this grapefruit-sized orb embedded in my uterine wall has gone tangerine and liquid-centered, a liqueur-filled truffle going supernova. Having never given birth to a child, I wonder now if my womb will become home to any variety of celestial bodies or clouds, nebula, the Kuiper belt, perhaps even a red giant. Left with humbler tools than God who made the universe or my physician with her extensive technologies. On my whimsical days, I conjure a red garden gnome, hollow, friendly, innocuous.
All right.
I'm learning to think of my uterus as having a universe in it. Let's let those words sink in for those of us for whom it resonates. I'm going to invite forward Roy Miller, who's going to share an introduction to our plate sharing organization for this month. In the work of this congregation in sharing generously what they can for both the plate sharing organizations and the church is gratefully appreciated.
Good morning, all. Our plate share this month is for the ASIPSAR, and I'm sure you all know what that is. That's the Acton Stowe Interfaith Partnership assisting Afghan refugees. And 1 year ago, 6 area churches, including FPC, met via Zoom and formed the partnership to assist the Afghan evacuees who are arriving in droves in Massachusetts. We aligned with IINE, everyone knows that one, International Institute of New England, up in Lowell, and they arranged for our own family for us to co-support. The family is the Habibi family. It consists of the mom and dad, 3 daughters, aged 22, 11, and 7, and a disabled son, age 16. They still now live in a 2-bedroom apartment in Lowell. And so that averages like 3 people in each bedroom. And they're settling in quite well here in America. Dad is working 3rd shift in Chelmsford. The girls are all in school, and the son is getting the medical treatment that he needs, the care he needs. Dad has recently passed his mass driver's test, and that's greatly attributed to Steve Evans, who helped him quite a bit. The dad is now able to pay just about half of the rent, so they're getting self-sufficient. So what do they need now in order to gain total independence? Well, first is a suitable apartment. They really need a 3-bedroom affordable unit, something around $2,000 a month. So if you know of anything in the area, please let us know. The partnership is helping the family find a location. So any tips would and you can go through our SAS task force here at FPC. The second thing is an automobile. And this would open them up to better jobs, more options on housing, able to meet appointments at schools or at medical appointments. Again, if you know any vehicle that could be sold or donated, especially to the family, just step forward. We believe that the Habibi family will soon be totally on their own, but FPC should stand proud of all the work you've done to date to help the partnership. And we do look forward to this partnership, interfaith partnership, continuing as we move ahead with this kind of work. So thank you all for your continued support of our mission here at FPC. Thanks again, Roy.
Today is the 50th anniversary of Roe v. Wade. Not, unfortunately, the celebration of 50 years of abortion rights in America, but the anniversary of the passing of that landmark legislation nonetheless. I was talking with my sister, Carrie, a few days ago, and she was talking about how last November, her bodily autonomy was on the ballot in Michigan, the state where she lives. I was struck by that because my sister is several years younger than me, and I thought, oh, that's a difference. At 52, and having ceased menstruating after starting a medication to limit my periods a year ago, I don't think of reproductive freedom laws as being about my bodily autonomy personally. So then, as if to give me a huge wake-up call and say, pay attention to abortion rights, my body yesterday did something it hadn't done in a year. It started menstruating. Now I say this knowing that talking about menstruation and about women's bodily functions is a great taboo in this society. We don't talk about this, especially from a pulpit. And in church, especially a church with a 350 almost year history in which all the other called ministers who have preceded me here have been men. This taboo is strong. I'm willing to bet that it has been a never that you've had a minister stand here and talk about their own menstruation. It's a cultural taboo. But that's one of the things, you see, that keeps us from talking about reproductive freedom. That the people for whom it matters have had all sorts of judgments placed on their bodies by the state, but even more so by the church, and told not to talk about their bodies and their functions. We can light candles for having to have cancer removed, but we can't talk openly about fibroids in our uteruses. Women are told not to talk about their reproductive cycles, to point to where all sorts of rumors and misinformation abound, to the point where all sorts of rumors and misinformation abounds. We are told not to talk about them because the church originally created a system where women are supposed to be pure, but are secretly and horribly not pure. Sexuality is not pure, so if you pretend it doesn't exist, you are more pure. And Christianity is big on this. But it's not just Christianity. In Judaism, women participated in the mikveh, or ritual bath, after menstruation to restore their purity. And when I was in seminary, I went to a Lakota reservation where we were invited by the Lakota people to join in the sweat lodges during that time. But the women who were menstruating were not. Fortunately, my body was in compliance that week. And one Lakota woman explains in an article in the Lakota Times that this isn't because menstruation is a negative thing, but because menstruation is a symbol of death energy. And while that's not negative, it is powerful. But it still does result in the removal of menstruating women from ceremonies. But whatever the level of taboo in other religions and other countries, it is a powerful thing in Christianity and here in the US. So I start by, as a religious figure here in the US, breaking that taboo directly. I read an article yesterday on CNN where a woman reporter talked about her own abortion. She ended that article with saying, "As a journalist, I try to avoid taking partisan positions. However, this issue is personal. I'm still haunted by that trip to Pennsylvania and how frightened I was. And today I have students and friends who are just beginning to move into their promising futures. It hurts," she said, "to think that they might experience the same suffering that was so routine for my cohort." She was a generation older than me. You see, she tries not to be personal, but the issue is personal. And it's necessary to break down the distance that so often exists, to break across the taboo. It's a time when women need to be able to talk about their reproductive situation and to talk about their freedom and their rights. You see, what we've done in this religion, in this country, in both religion and this country, is let control over people with uteruses' bodies be decided by people without uteruses. Because women, or any of those of us who carry uteruses, whether women or not, are inferior. And the one reason they are inferior is because of their bodies, which are dirty and bad. Eve was punished for becoming physically aware of her body, realizing that she was naked when she ate that apple, and her punishment was birthing labor, pain in the labor process. And I'm sure that there's some connection that's been made to say that menstrual pain is a reminder of that original sin. And because of Eve who sinned, women are lesser. And so in the Catholic Church, women are still not given the same power as men. They cannot be priests, and therefore do not have access to literal power that men have access to, magical power that men have access to. I took 2 classes at the Catholic seminary during my seminary days, and one was the one that took us to the Lakota reservation. It was a reverse missionary trip. And the other was a pastoral care class. And when the pastoral care professor did one exercise, he broke the class into those who were training to become priests and those who were doing training to become Catholic lay people. And he looked at me as the only female in the room who was headed towards ordination. And he said to me, in this class, you're among the lay people. It was clear to me then and there that my ordination was not taken seriously in the Catholic seminary or the Catholic faith. And so in that church, where power is still held by men, women are secondary. And they wield great power over religion, but that church wields great power over state as well. When I was in Jackson, Michigan, the local United Way had numerous donors to its organization, and one of the organizations that United Way supported was Planned Parenthood. They were a big supporter of Planned Parenthood. That is, until a local university, a religious one, decided to say to United Way that it would no longer let people do an automatic payroll withdrawal for United Way from their institution unless United Way pulled Planned Parenthood from its supported organizations list. Our little UU church put up a protest about this, but we were small, and the university was big, and the dollars spoke, and funds for Planned Parenthood were pulled from United Way. Just as this sector, the nonprofit sector, is so influenced by the funds from the religious right, so too, of course, our politics, but so much more so. And so it was that anti-abortion activists backed presidential candidates who say that they will appoint only Supreme Court judges who will overturn abortion, and that is eventually what they got. So what we need to turn around in this country begins with the idea and ends with the idea that women should be in control of their own bodies, and all people, men too, non-binary people too, should be in control of their own bodies. And one of the fundamental components of making that change is to say that our bodies and the things that they do are not taboo and shouldn't be hidden away in dark corners, not to be spoken about. So we have to break the taboos. And then the next step is we have to break the laws, or at least skirt them as close as we can. Because the truth is, here, after 50 years of Roe v. Wade, we're back to the states getting to decide after the return of abortion rights last year. Because for the dozen states where abortion is completely illegal, the process for granting women and other uterus holders, including girls, non-binary people, trans boys and trans men with uteruses, the process in those states is basically twofold. One, it's bringing illegal abortion pills in. And 2, it's bringing those women and uterus holders out, sometimes illegally. So for the states where they border on another state, like Kansas over the border from Oklahoma, or Washington and Oregon over the border from Idaho, or Illinois over the border from Missouri, the work is to move services closer to the borders and to double the staffing and spaces in the now busier than ever clinics in those free states. But that doesn't help as much with a state like Mississippi or Louisiana, where they're completely surrounded by other abortion-denying states, and where it's not illegal for women to cross the lines and get an abortion, but it's illegal within the states sometimes to inform them on how to do that, and where to do that, and how to get help and support. So that's where people across America, in states where it's legal, need to help fund the organizations that are providing the information, providing the travel, and providing the resources, and providing the illegal abortion pills. For right now, women do still have the right to travel, but this right is under scrutiny, and it's what we also need to fight to uphold. The religious right in America, which is what is behind the ban on abortion, thrives in the silences. They thrive in the taboos, and they thrive in the sinfulness that's placed on women and non-binary and trans people, and the fear and misunderstanding about rights and about laws. I think about it like, oh, if I, as a 52-year-old woman, were to miraculously get pregnant, which apparently my ovaries are still considering that I might want to do, it would not be a healthy pregnancy. My uterus, filled with a grapefruit-sized universe fibroid, would not be a good place for a fetus to grow. I would need to have an abortion. Now, as a woman in Massachusetts, that would not be a problem. So suppose I lived in Florida. Or Georgia. That's even more likely because I have family from Georgia, right? And Florida laws are iffier. But as a woman with resources and a reasonable degree of money and friends in good places, like here, that would still not be a problem because I'm not silenced and I'm not unresourced. So let's imagine that I'm a woman who is an undocumented immigrant for whom money is tight and travel is difficult. Then my abortion is much more difficult to obtain. If I discover it early enough, maybe I can illegally find and obtain the abortion pill. But if I don't, because my periods, after all, are extremely irregular and I haven't had one for a year, and plus I'm fat, so weight loss wouldn't be noticed right away, weight gain wouldn't be noticed right away, then I'm in a much more difficult situation. You see how the cultural taboos stack up and the oppressions are linked. It's much more serious for women who face any other cultural stigmas, any other silences, any other oppressions to deal with this one. And we may think that, oh, women of a certain age don't really get pregnant all that often, but they do. And girls, little girls, who have years before they become women, they get pregnant too. And we're seeing horrible, horrible examples of little girls who get pregnant and the state won't allow them to stop their pregnancy, despite the fact it's a significant risk to her body, a body not yet developed enough to bear a child. And there's no exceptions for incest and rape, which are really about 100% of such cases. For women of my class and race and socioeconomic status, much less my age, it's easy to believe sometimes that feminism is no longer needed, that women are equal to men. But pull away any part of that package, and women are not equal at all. And it's just that not just that there is racism and classism and homophobia, but that sexism is really still there under it all. And the combinations of oppressions is where it's allowed to thrive. So what I want to say is that up here in Massachusetts, it's very easy to not stop and pay attention to reproductive freedom, even now that it's limited, and even on a day like today, which is the 50th anniversary of the passing of Roe v. Wade. I actually, I thought that all UU ministers were preaching about this today, and I was like, then I started realizing that wasn't the case. And I went and started looking at church websites. And I went to like 5 big church websites across the US, and I started looking at them, and none of those 5 big church websites actually listed what they were preaching on at all. So then I went to more and more church websites, and I started with mostly ones here in Massachusetts. And the first 5 or 6 ones that I found before I just quit in frustration to see what they were preaching on today, none of them were preaching on Roe v. Wade. And I think, oh, it's easy to rest in our privilege based on the fact that other areas where we don't face oppression mask the fact that women and all uterus holders are still at risk. President Joe Biden issued a proclamation saying, "Now, therefore, I, Joseph Biden Jr., President of the United States of America, by the virtue of the authority vested in me by the Constitution and the laws of the United States, do hereby proclaim January 22nd, 2023, as the 50th anniversary of the Roe v. Wade decision. Here's the important part, I call upon Americans to honor generations of advocates who have fought for reproductive freedom, to recognize the countless women whose lives and futures have been saved and shaped by the Roe v. Wade decision, and to march forward with purpose as we work together to restore the right to choose." So that's the call for our president, from our president. Honor those who have fought in the past. Recognize those whose lives have been shaped by Roe v. Wade. March forward with purpose to restore the right to choose. Last year, we started a reproductive choice task force, and it hasn't gone very far, mostly because I haven't really galvanized it and spent the time to get it clearly organized, but it's close to ready to go now, and there are many things we can do. And unfortunately, it's not always glamorous and interesting work. We're not going to be running to the airports to pick up women and escorting them to abortion providers. We're not going to be secretly hoarding the abortion pills and mailing them down south either, although that's possible. It's going to be about education, about fundraising, helping to raise voices and awareness in states where issues are pending. It's going to be about using our resources, time, money, intelligence, to raise awareness and raise funds. It's going to be partnering with the right organizations to help them in the ways that they're asking for help, not the ways we necessarily are thinking about. We're not alone in having done much, but the good news is, and the bad news is, this isn't a short-term issue. This is something we're in now for the long haul, and there's no better time to start than now, this very day, the 50th anniversary. And the thing is, this looks like it's a political issue decided by votes and courts, but at heart, it's a religious issue. It's religious groups pushing for the defunding here and the blocking there. It's religious leaders organizing their people to get out there in organized ways. And so we as Unitarian Universalists, we might not be strong enough to do this alone, as we weren't in Jackson to stop the change in the United Way. But we have organization and we have connections. And when we learn that we need to do this connected way, not just saying, oh, our group is going to raise enough money and find women and bring the women here, but we're partnering with other organizations, with existing organizations that are working to pass legislation, working to do things in the face of bad legislation, even illegally, to get women and girls and men and non-binary people with uteruses out into safety, then we can be successful. But we have to start by talking openly, by taking our religious values about the inherent goodness of sexuality to heart and saying here and now, if it's okay to light a candle about hip surgery, it's okay to talk about your uterus and how it's doing. Mine, not so great. It's cramping up right now as I preach. Cramping up in protest of the lack of reproductive freedom. Cramping in fear of a world that is going the path of the Handmaid's Tale. You see now, you made a big decision 5 years ago and called for the first time a woman minister to be your settled minister here at FPC. And this is what it's led to. Because we gave her the freedom of the pulpit in this faith. Thank you. I'm so nervous today. Where your ministers are told that they can say any controversial things that are their truth without fear of censorship or of losing their position due to the freedom of their words. Now it's come to this. Let us talk openly, friends, and let us live our values. Remember that oppression against women, and by connection to that, to trans people and non-binary people, is still very much a thing, and that oppressions are compounded by other oppressions. And as we look at immigration and racism and other oppressions, let us look at the impact on people with uteruses, on women, and too. And as we fight for justice, remember how these oppressions are linked. But two, we start the fight anew, fighting for reproductive freedom, to hold control over our own bodies and to extend that control to all the people of this country and this world. May it be so. Our closing hymn is number 1008. And we're closing today with three things that are participatory right in a row. So keep your order of service with you as you stand up, because we've got a chant for our benediction, and then we're going into the closing song, which is also our postlude today. So please rise in body or in spirit. Our benediction is a unison chant by Jezebel and Nat, my chant for choice. We're going to clap on the verbs, love, make, trust, and raise. And Brad's going to help me with this. I think Brad and I will do it once through, and then you all join for 3 more times, okay? We love our bodies. We make our choices. We trust our wisdom. We raise our voices. We love our bodies. We make our choices. We trust our wisdom. We raise our voices. We love our bodies. We make our choices. We trust our wisdom. We raise our voices. We love our bodies. We make our choices. We trust our wisdom. We raise our voices.
Gonna keep on moving forward. Gonna keep on moving forward. Gonna keep on moving forward. Never turning back. Never turning back. Gonna learn to love our bodies. Gonna learn to love our bodies. Gonna learn to love our bodies. Never turning back. Never turning back. Gonna break taboos together. Gonna break taboos together. Gonna break taboos together. Never turning back. Never turning back. Gonna keep on moving forward. Gonna keep on moving forward. Gonna keep on moving